today is November 10th, 2015, and I'm here with Eloise Anderson in New York City to discuss her career in dance.
Thank you very much, Jill. And I am Eloise Anderson, but professionally I was Eloise Hill Anderson, so I will just insert that in terms of that's a name that you may find on programs or a name that was mentioned. As a child, I was born in Harlem at home, and at home because my father feared that in the hospital we might get mixed up and they would get the wrong babies. So, and as a child, I studied music, piano lessons, and dance lessons. And at that time, I studied with Ann Jones, and she taught tap, ballet, and toe, and that's the way it was defined. Ballet was with a soft slipper, and toe was with the actual toe shoes, which you started with from the very beginning. And actually, to make the toe shoe more supple, it was just manually maneuvered.
And you were how old?
Oh, I think I must have been about maybe 8 or 9, something like that. Yep. And these, there were 3 dance teachers at that time, and there was Ann Jones, Ella Gordon, and Grace Giles. And these dance teachers had concerts. They had them at the Lafayette Theater, which was or may still be in Harlem on 7th Avenue, about 132nd Street. And we were costumed as if we were going to be on Broadway, and there were major rehearsals, tickets were sold, and it was a Broadway show. It was a children's Broadway show, actually. That was my early dance training. So I just developed a love for dancing. When I was in, I guess perhaps junior high, I was rehearsing with a group of friends in somebody's living room, and we were doing our own choreography. And we were going to audition for, I think it might have been Barney Josephson, I'm not sure, but I think it was the Village Gate. Mm-hmm. We were going to audition for. And it just happened that where we lived, the landlord lived in the same building. He lived across the hall from us. His apartment was like a luxurious apartment, looked nothing like ours, although ours was certainly presentable and livable. But he was a landlord, and he also dabbled in other things that I didn't know too much about, but my father did, so my father had a talk with him about this audition. So he said, well, that's at that particular club. He said it's not like a club where there are strip dances or anything like that. He said he probably won't hire them anyway. He said, so since they've been rehearsing, he said, are parents going with them? So my father said yes. He said, okay, so let her go, and that'll probably be the end of it. So we did audition. And out of the whole group, the only one that they wanted was me. And of course, that was the end of that little dance career, because my parents said, you're finishing high school, you're going to college, and so on and so forth. And at that time, in terms of child-parent relationships, there was no argument Whatever your parents said, that was what happened. And so there was no, I'm leaving home or I'm running away or this, that, and the other. Not at all. So that by the time I went to college, I thought, now I have to get into a dance program, you know. And I was going to ease into it so my parents wouldn't see right away that that was what I wanted to do. So I went to Howard University and I chose physical education as my major. And at that time, there was a woman whom many of you knew, Elizabeth Ray Williamson, who was teaching there. Although she was teaching there, she was a bit older than me, but not that much. And she had taken a lot of dance courses, and actually she had been like, I don't know, one of the earliest African American women to graduate from Radcliffe. And she was teaching so that in my physical ed courses, I had several dance courses with her, but the general program had mostly science classes and gymnastics, which I loved.
Oh, okay.
Yep. And gymnastics were difficult. Yeah. We had Danish gymnastics and we had German gymnastics. We would run and grab the horse and swing our whole body around and whatever we did. And so I exhausted the dance classes that we had on campus. And I say on campus because the rules were very strict. And we lived in the dormitories on campus. And at that time, there was segregation in Washington. And so, in a way, it was a way of protecting us from that. And at the same time, it was a way of not allowing us to really become knowledgeable about what was really going on politically in, I'll say, in Washington. But there was a pianist at Howard who was very talented, and at that time there was a school, a finishing school for white girls in Washington, D.C. that had arts classes and dance classes. It was called the King Smith School, and they needed a pianist for their dance class, so they got in touch with Howard University School of Music, and they suggested a pianist whose name I can't remember at the moment. And so she started going. She got special permission to play. Someone had to go with her because these classes were in the evening after the daytime students were finished with their classes. And so she knew that by then all of my friends and people on campus, they knew that I had some kind of talent because I would be asked. The fraternities had what they call smokers. And I think we all smoked at that time, I believe, I'm not sure. But at these smokers, there would be all men, and normally, I don't know what they would have, but I suspect that they might have had what we call, not strippers, but kind of, I think they titled it exotic dancers. So instead of having exotic dances, they would ask me to dance, and I would do my choreography. It would be like a modern kind of thing, which I did to I used a lot of Woody Guthrie's music and Pete Seeger and maybe Ola Tunji, I'm not sure, but something that had drum beats to it also. And I would get paid, I don't know, maybe $15 or something like that. And then at that time, I met a classmate who was from Boston. Is this getting too lengthy?
No, this is wonderful.
Who had studied with Claire Haywood and
Jones.
Elaine Jones. It will come. In Boston. And they had recently left Boston and moved to Washington and opened their school there. And she knew them well because she had studied with them. And we both tap danced also. And we would work out our routines ourselves. And then we both were dancing at Smokers. So, when the pianist started playing for the classes at the King Smith School, she let me know. She says, you know, they have, in the evening classes, she said, I've seen several African-American students there. I said, really? So I said, we'll find out if they will take another student. She said, sure. She said, now, if you go, I think you have to take dance and drama. I said, well, I've never taken drama, but that's okay. And then, if I can, and then I'll speak to the, we call them, I guess, the house matron, and then she had to speak to the dean of women, because I would be going off campus in the evening. And a friend of mine, the same friend who was with me New Year's Eve, she would go with me. And I went, and the dance teacher was Ethel Butler. And Ethel Butler was one of the original members of the Graham Company. And David Campbell was one of the original members of the Graham Company. He did drama, she did dance. So I went, and it was so exciting for me. And I picked up Graham just right away. Not all of the positions, because some of those positions are really, I say they're made for Japanese women who can fold it in that particular way. But I just love those classes, and it was just so great. And then, meanwhile, on campus, Elizabeth Williamson had gone on to New York. And they hired a teacher named Erica Timey, Thimey. I think she was German. I remember she had an accent. And they expanded the dance classes. And of course I took all of them. And whenever we had performances, I was in the performance and whatnot. And I remember one, for May Day, they would have a campus festival, I guess you might call it, or an exhibition. And there was this ballet that Erica Timey created called the Wheelie Train. And it was a train that went from Wee to Lee and from Lee to Wee. And the engine was in the front, and I was the engine. And I remember we were also nervous because we were wearing white leotards, and they made cuffs and some kind of little hats. And as the engine, I had a circular something on me and whatnot. And meanwhile, I'm still in the phys ed, you know, and I had a chemistry class. But if there was a rehearsal, then I would go to the rehearsal. And I remember at this time I was I had to speak to the chemistry teacher because I wanted to ease my load. I wanted a grade that would give me drop while passing, so I wouldn't have any points deducted. And he told me, he said, I see you out there on the campus dancing, doing that train dance when you're supposed to be in this class. But anyway, so we did the wheelie train a number of times. It was very popular. And the students loved it because it had a lot of hip movement, you know. And the others in it were very good, but we held on to the elbows and we just went all around. And I recreated that years later when I was a camp counselor at Fern Rock Camp. But after taking all of those classes, then I began to love some of my science classes, and I thought, oh, well, maybe I'll do pre-med, you know. The anatomy, I was like this. That was anatomy 1. Okay, comparative anatomy for the practical. The professor he threw a bunch of bones on the table, and you're supposed to pick it up, and he wants to know the origin and the insertion and what kind of bone it is. And if you haven't really studied, you're lost. Just looks like a bunch of bones. So I thought, well, I have to get out of these science courses. Now it's maybe, I had changed my major from phys ed by then to, I guess, to pre-med. And now I have to get out of pre-med, and I've got to get into a major. This is like getting into my junior year. So I go to my advisor, who happens to be the head of the sociology department, and who has seen me perform at various things. I remember his name was Frank Edwards, and he said, "What do you really want to do?" I said, I want to graduate, and then I want to be in the theater. He said, all right. He said, now let's look at the courses you've taken and let's see what you have the most credits in. And he said, that's going to become your major, so we can get you out of here in the next 2 years. So with the required courses that you take in your freshman year and other things, I became a sociology major. And I remember I had to take accounting, and I just loved it. And he said, nope, you're not going to become a math major. Nope, you're a sociology major. That's just an accounting course. You're getting a good grade. We're moving on. So I graduated with a BA in sociology. And meanwhile, in the summer, when I would come home, I would go to the new dance group. When it was on 59th Street off of Fifth Avenue. And I would just take, I don't know how many classes. I just remember just being drenching wet. And the classes were, I don't know, they were 79 cents or I don't know what they were.
Do you remember any of the teachers that you took
Pearl,
class with?
that's where I met Pearl Primus, yes. And Nona Shurman was there. Charles Weidman was there. Trying to think of some Graham people who were there. I can see her, but I can't think of her name. It may come. Bales. Bill Bales was there. And not Denizulu, he was later. Asadata, I guess, was there.
Wow.
I'm not sure. But I took classes with Pearl, and I think it was just called, I took classes with her among other people. And so she noticed me right away. And at that time, she was in Showboat.
Okay.
Yep. And I think she was doing, or maybe before she did Showboat, she had been at Barney Josephson's Village Gate, I guess. And it was the first time that he had had like a concert performer in his nightclub. And it sort of helped his image a lot. And does the timing sound right?
It does. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then, so by the time I graduated, Pearl had asked me to come to her studio to study. So that's what I did. And from being at the new dance group, or maybe when I was at Pearl's studio, I think Tally used to bring his company in there to rehearse because she would, rent the space. She was living in a part of the studio.
Okay.
And she would rent the studio that she used for her rehearsals sometimes. And that's how I met him. And that's how he noticed me. So that, and Pearl was developing her technique. I remember that. And there were some people from, I don't know if it was Tally or there were some people from Dunham who had come over maybe to Tally's rehearsal, and they had spoken to John Pratt about me. And at the time that these things are happening, you don't know who these people are or anything. You're just doing it. But Pearl and I reached an impasse because Pearl felt that I wasn't being enthusiastic with her technique. And what was happening is that students who came, they didn't often stay, so that we were really doing the same thing over and over. And I expressed this to her as best I could. So she said, all right, she said, I know you feel like you need to be challenged. She says, well, Martha Graham is a friend of mine, and I'm going to call her and see if you can get in a few classes there. And I said, oh, great. And at the time, I didn't immediately get the whole connection because I didn't know Ethel Butler's history that well. I didn't know that much about the dance history and whatnot. And so I went to Graham's, and I went into the most elementary class. And it just happened that day, Martha wasn't teaching the whole class, but she was teaching a segment. And I was in the class, and she noticed me. And she noticed me because I attacked very differently. And she said, where have you studied Graham technique? I said, in Washington, D.C. with Ethel Butler. She said, oh, she said, that explains it. She said, you know that she was in my original company? I said, yes, I found out. She said, and she asked me my name, and I told her. She said, all right. She said, at the time that Ethel was in the company, they used to attack. When they did the contractions, they really went like that, and the release. She said, we don't attack in that way anymore. We ease into it. And so that was a big change. And so she watched me during the whole class through the progressions. And by the time we did the progressions, I had good elevation. She told them I should go into the next class above that. So that was my brief experience with Graham. And I knew Bunny, Mary Hinkson. I knew her outside of dance. I knew her socially. actually. And when she saw me there, she was so excited, So I told her, so I've been studying with Pearl, and she wanted me to come here to take some classes and whatnot. And at that time, Bunny, we always called her, hadn't gone into the company yet. She and Matt hadn't gone into the company yet. Matt Tierney.
Tierney, right.
Yeah. And so then around that time, Pearl was offered a show, a Broadway show. And so she was going to come out of Showboat, and she was going to be replaced by Laverne French, who was Tally's cousin. He's a male dancer, but he was going to be doing her part.
Okay.
And she was coming out because in this new Broadway show, it was a gamble, but she was taking it. She was going to be like the big star of the whole thing. And also in that show, there was going to be another company, Claude Marchand was going to have a company, and Josephine Primus was going to be in the show. And I was Josephine Primus's understudy.
Oh, okay.
So, and anyway, we went into rehearsal. That was an exciting time.
This was in Pearl's show.
For Pearl's show, yes.
And the name of the show was?
The name of the show was, I always said Caribbean Carnival, but wait a minute, I have a book.
Look at it later.
Okay.
Yeah.
Her last name is Schwartz. It's right over there. When I was gathering material for her
Peggy Schwartz's book.
Peggy Schwartz, yes.
Yeah.
When I was gathering material for her to look at, and I had the program, and the program said Calypso. And I said, how can that be? I said, we've always referred to that show as Caribbean Carnival. But there it was. And I couldn't put my hand on that material for today,
Right.
but it's here in the house. And the rehearsal, that was all new to me, and it was all very exciting. And by the day when we had the appointment to go to the costumers for measurements, I mean, that was really getting into show business. And so we went through that, and at the same time, Marlon Brando. What was the show? Not, It Will Come. Anyway, that particular show was in rehearsal.
Okay.
And it was, at that time, and maybe they still do, shows would play 2 weeks in Philadelphia, 2 weeks in Boston, and then they would come and open in New York. I know now they just stay right here and do the whole thing. So that was also exciting, getting our trunks ready to go to Philadelphia to stay in a hotel and everything. And just putting on all the stage makeup and having a matinee and everything like that. So we were 2 weeks in Philadelphia, and we were 2 weeks in Boston, and we got great reviews. 2 weeks in Boston, and in Philadelphia I went on once for Josephine because she was late coming back, and in Boston we got great reviews. I have to think of the Marlon Brando show. It wasn't on the waterfront. It was, what is it when he calls Stella? Streetcar. It was Streetcar. That was the show. All right, we all opened at the same time, and because Marlon had studied
At Dunham.
Yeah, by that time I had also taken a few classes at the Dunham School. And Mr. Pratt sent me a message that if I came to the Dunham School, I would get a full scholarship. And I did. Meanwhile, my parents my parents, my mother knew what I was doing. My father thought I had a job because I was leaving. And he said I either had to have a job or I had to go to school. So that was easy. So I think I took 2 courses at Columbia, one in anthropology and one in something else. And because I was leaving so early, he thought I was going to work. And I remember my mother would give me, maybe it was $1, maybe it was $2, and she would say, and we lived in Queens by then, and she said, if you don't have sense enough to come home, you just have to manage with what I'm giving you. And at that time, the subway was, I don't know, a nickel, a dime, or something. And so I would take all these classes. Okay, I'm skipping around too much now. So we're going to the opening. We're in Boston. So because we knew a lot of the cast members in Streetcar, we had a cast party together. And because they didn't get good reviews, we were consoling them, Okay, we came back to New York. And at that time Time Warner area was Columbus Circle. Right. It was a theater. And opening night, they posted closing.
For
us. Of course, Streetcar, was history. So after that, I was really sort of in a slump. And then Tally was rehearsing. He was getting a group together because he was thinking of a tour in no, I guess that was later. I guess from there I started taking classes at the Dunham School in earnest because I had this scholarship. And that is when my father thought I had a job that I was going to. And, by the time you're there and you stay for the experimental group rehearsal, I remember I'd take 2 or 3 leotards because you just get soaking wet to change your underwear, change everything. And I remember there was a friend whom I'm still in touch with. He lives in Italy now. He lived in Manhattan, and he would, at that time you could ride on the subway and you didn't worry about someone,
right,
whatever. He would ride out to Queens with me, but he didn't have money to pay another fare, so at that time it goes up. It's elevated. He would hang over the side and look down while I came down, and there would be like a little group of taxis there, and I would get in the taxi, and I always remember to save 35 cents because that's what it cost me to go from that point to my house because it was late, and I would be scared to walk. And then he would come on back home, and we talk about it now and we just die laughing. But I was at the Dunham School working with the experimental group, and somebody was coming, she was sending, she was having auditions. They were leaving for London. And Julie and I auditioned together, and Julie had studied at the Dunham School for a long time. And so she took Julie. And I was still at the Dunham School. And I would take some classes with Tally. And then I was there at the Dunham School in a class, and these people you probably don't know, Jimmy Hunt and Reggie Fields, they had auditioned and gotten into the road company of Showboat. And they came running over to the school all excited. They said, "Eloise, you have to come here." I said, "Come where?" They said, "Rita Christiani broke her ankle, and they need a girl right away, and we told them that you would come and audition." I said, "You gotta be kidding." He said, "Come on." He said, "We're going on the road. We're gonna be gone for 9 months." I thought, my parents are gonna die. Are you kidding. So, because they were upset when we were in Boston, and we flew from Boston back to New York. And that was my first time on a plane, and they were so worried. They said, well, how you get? I said, getting on a plane to go back. But anyway, my father had a Ferris wheel in his years and years ago, and he had done the carnival thing. It was called Hill's Greatest Shows. And so much later he said, I guess she got that from me. So he was understanding it a bit, but he was also worried about it because he also knew the dark side of what could happen. But anyway, so I said, what I have to do? They said, don't worry, it's easy. Said the dance captain, that was Laverne French, he's going to show you. He said, it's just some little steps. And he said, you just have to sell it. He said, you have like 2 minutes, you come down solo by yourself, and you just grin at the audience, and then you just go back into the line. And so I went for the audition, and I did what they said. And they said, they took my information. It was Billy Hammerstein was in charge of the production. And they said, well, they would let me know. So that night I was at home. And at that time, just had one telephone.
Of course.
And ours was in the kitchen area. And the phone rang, and I picked it up. And it was, whoever it was, that they said, all right, come in at such and such address to sign your contract, to go on the road. It's a 9-month tour, starting in, I don't know where we started, but we started in a northern state. And he said, we're going straight down the line, all the way to the south, and you'll get the information, you'll get the itinerary, and you'll get the information out about when your trunk will be picked up. Oh my God. Now my parents, in your house when the phone rang, everybody's, so I told them, and they're saying, what? I said, well, yes. I said, well, I did this audition yesterday, and so and so. So my father said, well, okay. He said, I think my mother went with me when I went to sign the contract, because she wanted to see. And I think she was not really believing, what it was. So I signed the contract, and she saw it was legit, and saw the salary and everything. I came home and told my father. He was beginning to get a little excited then, And we were going, so that was the beginning. So I went on the road with Showboat, and that was a great experience. I learned how to cook on the road with Showboat from the guys who used to cook in their rooms. And I learned how to knit on the road because they would knit tights. And we had these long train rides where they would have, we had berths. And because of the discrimination at that time, we would call the A singers and the B singers, and the A dancers and the B dancers. And of course, the A singers were the black people, and the B singers were the white folks. But they put all the women together, all the men together, and the company would just buy out the coach. And when it came time to eat, they'd buy out the dining room until we, finish our meal. So it was an exciting and quite an experience.
But you traveled all the way down south.
Yep. We went all the way down south. And I must say that I think when we were in, maybe it was Alabama, the segregation laws there, so crazy. There was a restaurant right next to the theater. And so, you're there, and so you, to get along, you just do what you have to do. So we would go and get sandwiches or something to take out. And the people in the restaurant said, well, no, if we were from the show, we could eat there. I said, no, That's all right. We'll just take it out. But I remember in one theater in the South, it was, I had never seen Catfish Row. Which show was that?
Porgy and Bess.
I hadn't seen Porgy and Bess by then, but I heard about it. I've seen pictures, and we were on stage, and there was so much going on in cooking in the various dressing rooms. You could get the aroma, and you felt like, well, this is really Catfish Row up in those dressing rooms, because they did serious cooking. Serious cooking. And I remember in Oklahoma, we arrived in Oklahoma in a snow like I'd never seen, just up to there. And of course, in terms of the housing for hotels, that was segregated. So we arrived at this black hotel, and they knew we were all coming, I guess, but they hadn't expected these, I guess I'd say, highfalutin Negroes to come. So we had to sit in the lobby for a long time while they went out. And it was obvious when we got to the room, they had new mattresses, new sheets, new pillowcases, new linens, new towels, because evidently it was like a 2-hour flop house or something. They had everything new, and I remember they cooked us a very elaborate big breakfast and whatnot, because we were anxious, traveling, you're anxious to get into your room. Not until they got that place straight. That was one of the experiences. And so we had done a lot of the tour and whatnot, and a lot of bonding with various people and whatnot. And then I began to hear from Dorothy Gray at that time, was Dunham's assistant. Okay. Now, she was also a very close friend, I'll say, that much. And I heard something from her, I don't even know what it was. And then the next thing I heard from her was a very solid thing, that Miss Dunham wanted me to join the company immediately, and could I get out of my contract. So we were in Allentown, Pennsylvania, Amish country, which was, I always wanted to go back there. It was very nice, really very nice. And we just had 2 more weeks to go in the show. And so I spoke to the company manager. I showed him the letter and whatnot. He said, what a great opportunity. He said, of course. He said, now you send her a telegram and tell her yes. And he said, we'll help you make the arrangements for you to get back to New York, because I would be traveling alone. I had to go, I went on a train, of course, yeah. And my parents met me, and then I didn't have a passport. And so I think Dorothy came out to my house and picked me up, and we came in, and I said, well, how long will it take? She said, there's a way we can get a 24-hour passport. And Dunham paid for it, I don't know, $200 or whatever. And just like that, I had a passport. And she took care of booking the flight and everything like that. And then they had to arrange for my trunk to get back from wherever it was back to New York. And Dorothy and my parents worked all of that out, because the trunk was going to travel by boat to
London?
No, by then the company had been over there like 9 months, to Gothenburg in Sweden.
Okay.
And so I had to have enough clothing and suitcases and whatnot with me, because I was meeting the company in Belgium. So I was flying from New York, and at that time, you flew from New York to, not Greenland, I guess maybe it was Greenland. From New York to, it was somewhere up there north.
Iceland or Greenland or something.
I just remember Greenland. I remember I was fine and excited about it until I reached a point where I was by myself. My parents had to leave, Dorothy had to leave, and I was walking by myself, and I started crying. And I got on the plane, and I remember I had an aisle seat, and across the aisle there was a man sitting there. He looked like an older man. And so, we struck up a conversation. And I remember there was a baby on that flight who cried the whole time. So bad, too bad. But when we arrived in, or was it Nova Scotia? It was somewhere up north. I think it was Greenland at the time. When we arrived there, it was pouring rain. And I said, oh, good. I know we're going to get over this plane and spend the night here until it stops raining. No. When that plane took off, my heart just sunk. I just thought, oh God. Like, it's okay to crash if it's dry.
Right.
But I don't want to crash in the rain. But anyway, that plane took off, and it was, it was bumpy and everything. And this man he knew I was nervous. And I let him know it was my first long-distance flight, and I was really going to Belgium, but my connection was to go to Ireland, Dublin. That was
okay.
And so we talked and whatnot, and when they took the orders for drinks, he asked me, I said, well, yes. I said, I guess I should. And because I was drinking by then, so I got something. I was a little more relaxed. And by the time we landed in Ireland, we got off, and we had, I don't know how much time we had, but we might have even changed planes. I don't even remember, but we had some time. And I remember, I guess I had what they call it, Irish whiskey. I had a coffee with whiskey in it or something like that. I must have had some food in between somewhere, because at that time they served food on flights. And then he was, I don't know if he was staying there going in another direction, but then I got on the next plane, or maybe the same plane, and I was flying to Antwerp. No, I was flying to Brussels. The company was in Antwerp.
Okay.
And Julie was meeting me in Brussels. Mm-hmm. So that was okay. So I got to Brussels. And I remember I was carrying, Dorothy had given me at that time, a lot of the dancers carried hat boxes, those round hat boxes, And I had Dunham's hat box, and I don't know what else I had and whatnot. And going through customs, I didn't even pay attention. I got through there, and I met Julie. I was so happy to meet her. Then we were going on the train, thank God, on the train from Brussels to Antwerp. And, of course, she wanted to know right away, what was my salary going to be?
To compare.
To compare. Anyway, we got to Antwerp safely, and I guess we got there early enough because her instructions had been to get me checked into the hotel and up to my room. And I was sharing a room with Lucille Ellis.
Okay.
And for me to stay in the hotel, go to bed, and she had to get to the theater because there was a performance. And I remember being in the hotel, and I saw this bidet, and I thought, my goodness, you know, what is that? And I think Lucille had underwear soaking in the bidet, and I was just curious and whatnot.
Now, who else was in the company at that point? Do you remember?
Oh, Kitty was in the company. Othello Strozier, Delores. She was Delores Harper then. Lenwood Morris, Vanoy Akins, Eddie Hawkins, Wilbert Bradley, I can't think of his name, but I have his picture. Was a big guy like Van. I can't think of his name. I have some pictures there. Jackie Walcott. Maybe that was it. So, and Julie had, she had ordered room service for me. So, I had food and whatnot. And by the time, I had met Lucille just at the audition in Philadelphia, but I didn't know her. But I knew she was a lead dancer, and I was kind of nervous about her because she always looked tough to me, And she came in and she welcomed me, and she was talking and, this and that and the other. And she said, Miss Dunham wanted me to just get some rest because tomorrow morning I had rehearsal at such and such a time with Lenwood because I had to go into the show tomorrow night. So I said, well, that's okay. And she said, do you think you can do that? I said, well, that's the way they do it on Broadway. You sign your contract, you go to rehearsal, and you're on stage. You're on stage the next day. So, and then I asked about the B-Day, and she told me that was about. So anyway, I got myself together, and I was at, I think Lenwood came to pick me up, and he was excited to see me. He was the dance captain. And we went to the theater, and I was going into Flaming Youth, Shango, and Tropics, and a part of Reet, because Reet had a number of sections, so I was just going into one part of it.
Had you done any of these dances before?
No. The Flaming Youth was easy because it was a jazz thing, where you go across the stage like that, the flapper thing and whatnot. So it was easy to me because I had gone through the period of really difficult dancing. So not that Dunham's choreography wasn't difficult, but it was simplistic. And it was 4 this way, 4 that way, 4 to the front, 4 to the back. Unlike Tally, where it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
Right.
7, and then something, 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 and then you repeat that later on. So your mind and your body's got to really be working. Tally's choreography really.
But you hadn't worked with Tally yet, have you?
No, I hadn't worked with him yet. But I had taken some classes with him, and I had seen his work. I had watched some of his rehearsals, and so
the 4 pieces.
The 4 pieces. So we did the rehearsal, and Lenwood was very, very pleased. Shango was very repetitive. What I had to do. I think it was like 4 movements, and the cross kick and spinning around and going down front. That's the picture that Charles Moore has made disappear. I think in Reet, I think in Reet, I was just a zombie, and I was very scared about that. But Lenwood showed me someone helps you to get up on the stilts, and once you get up there, I was wondering why the dress was so long, you know, and once you get up there, it's you have very good control. I just had to walk, you know, we just had to walk back and forth for a short while, you know, to kind of set the mood, and then someone helps you down off the stilts, and well, anyway, by the time the show was over, Dunham was so thrilled. She was so pleased. She gave the whole company a lecture that she had never had anybody to come in and with just one rehearsal to go into a show and to get it just right. And there was just one thing that she said Leonard would give me notes on. And the note was, I couldn't wear false eyelashes and I couldn't put a mole on my face.
Oh.
She wore the false eyelashes, my dear.
How long did you stay in Europe with her?
The first time I stayed, I think maybe 3 years.
Straight?
I'm not sure now. 48, 3, 51, maybe 2.5 years I stayed straight. And then I came back. I came back when they were going to South America. And you know, you would have the date of when the company went to South America. And at that point, there were a lot of things that I personally was dealing with in terms of the company and how it operated and this, that, and getting used to certain people and people who were principals, principal dancers, who maybe, in my opinion, couldn't really dance, but Dunham's choreography was such that it was a picturesque kind of. So if a person had a certain stature, you know, they could get that role, and so she was like shocked. You don't want to go to South America, and I should have gone, but I didn't. I just thought, just let me get home. So we came back, and I worked with the company. We opened at the theater right there at 52nd Street and Broadway. What is that theater? It's on the west side of, was it on Broadway or 6th Avenue?
I'm not picturing it, Eloise.
Was there an Alvin theater?
Maybe.
But we opened at that theater. So I did the show with them there. And at that time, Claudia McNeil had joined the company. And Lavinia Hamilton had joined the company also. And so, you know, I bid them farewell. And then almost like within the next day, I heard from Tally. He wanted me to come to sit in on his rehearsal and to watch Luan Ingram,